You know, it feels like our planet is under some serious pressure these days. Today, we're going to try to make sense of it by breaking it down into three parts, from the plastic we use every day to the literal clouds in the sky, and we'll see how they're all tangled together, using some real-world examples that hit close to home.
Okay, so the big idea we're working with here is something called the triple planetary crisis. And the key thing to get is that these aren't three separate problems. Nope, they're three faces of the same challenge. We've got pollution, we're losing biodiversity, and our climate is changing fast. Each one makes the others worse, creating this really dangerous cycle.
So here's our game plan. We'll kick things off with the plastic problem. Then we'll journey to the Himalayas. And then we'll look up at a hidden threat in our skies before we try to connect all the dots.
All right, let's dive into crisis number 1. This is the one we can all see and feel every single day. I'm talking about plastic. It's everywhere, and the amount we're making is just exploding.
To really get your head around the scale of this, check out these numbers. Back in 1950, the whole world produced about 2 million metric tons of plastic. Now, jump to 2022, and that number is 436 million. That's not just a little bit of growth, it's a massive, more than 200 times increase, all within a single human lifetime. It's staggering.
So we're making all this stuff. Where does it actually go? Well, we hear a lot about recycling, but the hard truth is less than 10% of it ever gets recycled. The huge majority, more than 3/4 of it, just becomes waste. It clogs up our landfills, our rivers, our oceans. And all those compostable alternatives, right now, they're not even a blip on the radar.
So what's being done? Well, countries like India have been trying to get a handle on this for years. It's been a slow ramp-up. They started with general rules, then moved to banning some of those single-use plastics we all know. And more recently, they introduced this idea called extended producer responsibility, which basically tells companies, hey, you made this bottle, you're on the hook for what happens to it.
But here's where it gets really complicated, and honestly, a little weird. While the government is making rules to discourage plastic, economic policy is kind of doing the opposite. Over the last 30 years, the taxes on importing plastic have been slashed, making it much cheaper. Meanwhile, taxes on paper alternatives have stayed high. So you're left with this bizarre situation where we're fighting a plastic fire but still getting a discount on fuel.
Okay, now we're going to shift gears and go to a place where all three parts of this planetary crisis, the pollution, the climate change, the biodiversity loss, all smash together. We're heading to the Himalayas. Here, the problem isn't just one thing, it's everything, everywhere, all at once.
And things have gotten so serious that India's Supreme Court had to step in. They recently issued this incredibly clear and powerful ruling, basically saying that making money can never be an excuse for destroying the environment. It sets a very serious tone. You see, the ecosystem there is getting squeezed from every direction. You've got pressure from unplanned development and tourism. You've got pressure from unregulated dam building. Then you've got climate change melting the glaciers. I mean, the Barashugri Glacier has shrunk by over 2 kilometers. And on top of all that, you have weak laws and deforestation. It's a true perfect storm.
And this isn't just about ice and rock. It's about life. I mean, look at the Satluj River. It used to be this mighty waterway, but because of all the unchecked construction, especially for hydropower, in some places it's been choked down to just a tiny stream. The damage to all the fish and other life in that river is just devastating.
All right, so we've looked at the ground, at the mountains. Now we're going to look up into the sky, at a threat that's basically invisible, a threat that, until very, very recently, we didn't even know was there.
It almost sounds like the start of a sci-fi movie, right? A recent, really groundbreaking study out of Kolkata asked this wild question. Researchers actually went and analyzed what's inside clouds, not just for water, but for pollution. And what they discovered, well, it's alarming.
The answer? Toxic heavy metals. Yeah, I'm talking about stuff like cadmium, copper, zinc, and chromium. These are nasty industrial pollutants you'd expect to find near a factory, not floating thousands of feet up in the air, literally mixed in with the water droplets that make up our cloud.
And what's really interesting is that this pollution isn't the same everywhere. When they compared the clouds over 2 of India's biggest mountain ranges, they found that the toxic load in the clouds over the eastern Himalayas was 1.5 times higher than over the Western Ghats.
Okay, so why does this matter?
Well, this isn't just some science experiment. It has real-world health impacts. The study found that children are especially vulnerable. They face a 30% higher health risk from these pollutants than adults do. And just think about the cycle here. Toxic clouds create toxic rain. That rain falls on our food, it gets into our rivers, and it contaminates our drinking water.
So, we've seen these different crises. It's a lot. Is there any good news? Is there a path forward? Well, the sources we've been looking at do suggest a few key steps we could take. Focusing on the Himalayas, the proposed solutions really follow a clear, logical path. First up, accountability. Making sure the money that's supposed to help the environment, like from a green tax, actually gets used for it. Next, enforcement. Actually using the laws we have to stop illegal mining and construction. Third, expert advice. Forcing developers to listen to scientists before they start building anything. And finally, all of this needs to be supported by better, smarter waste management at the local community level.
And that really leaves us with one big question to chew on. We've just talked about plastic pollution, damage to the Himalayas, and toxic stuff in our clouds like they're three different things. But are they? Or are they all just different symptoms of the exact same problem? A way of life that's just pushed our planet too far. It's a question that asks us to look beyond just fixing one thing at a time and maybe think about a bigger change. Thanks for digging into this with us.